Welcome, everyone. We are going to begin the webinar on an overview of the ARMS Automotive suite of products. I'm Melissa Jolls with RDA Impact, and we have Frank LaViola, Assistant Vice President of Collision Industry Relations and Strategic Sales for Enterprise. He's your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and if you have questions during the webinar, just type those in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and Frank will answer those throughout the presentation. I'll give them to him. Now I'm going to turn it over to Frank.
Thanks, Melissa, and thank you for inviting me to be on this call today and to lead this discussion. I know that Mike Anderson recently spoke to everyone and mentioned the ARMS products. And what I'd like to do today is kind of give you an overview of ARMS Auto. And I spoke to Melissa a little bit yesterday, and what we spoke about was one shop in particular and something I hear all the time, and that is that when you talk to a shop and when you guys talk to shops and you bring up ARMS to them, they generally feel like ARMS is just a pain in the butt. ARMS is something they have to use or feel compelled to use because the insurance carriers are asking them to use it. And really what they know about ARMS, at least the majority of the shops that I talk to, is that it's a status update tool. And so today I want to show you, first of all, what it's evolved to, and then really how you can use it to help your shops and your members and your customers better use this tool as a sales tool to insurance companies to really grow their business and to benchmark themselves compared to their market. So I'm going to go through a lot of this, and I know Melissa and I talked, and she's going to shoot out my email at the end of this so everyone has it. What I would say is whenever you go through a webinar like this, and it'll be shared with you, but a lot of the information can get lost. So all you guys and gals can reach out to me at any time, and I'm going to be more than happy to either answer questions for you or put you in touch with local folks that you can work directly with to help you with your shop. So with that said, let me kind of do a little bit of introduction of myself, just so you know who I am. So I've been with Enterprise for about 23 years I'm coming up on, and I started in Southern California. I opened up our German operations. I've done a lot of different things for Enterprise. And the position I'm in now I've been doing for about the last 8 years. And I got to tell you, and a lot of you guys probably get this, but the last 8 years have been the best years in the 23 years I've been with the company. And it's really because I've been able to work in this industry. I mean, I really do love the collision industry, and I've really gotten involved in it. I think it's really the last great American family-owned businesses that are out there today, probably like a lot of your businesses. I do a lot of 20 groups. That's actually how I met Mike Anderson, and I do those mostly for Axalta, but I've done them for other paint companies and other 20 group type of companies, Coyote Vision Group, things like that. I do attend CIC, the meetings. I'm also a participant on a lot of committees. I'm also on the SICA board, if you guys are familiar with SICA, and also the Collision Industry Foundation, which at the end I have a couple slides because I really want to plug that because that's something I think that's really great for the industry and someplace that we all should be involved with. So that's just kind of an overview of who I am, and just so you have that. So like I said, let's kind of talk about ARMS Auto. So again, shops really feel like when you talk to the majority of the shops, and especially the smaller shops, I think when you talk to the larger MSOs, they know about most of the stuff within ARMS Auto, and most of them, I'll tell you, the top 10 MSOs use ARMS Auto religiously. We have about 15,000 shops that are on ARMS Automotive, and every day they go in and they update the vehicle repair status, and I'll show you how we can alleviate some of that work in a little bit to update the vehicle repair status. We also have what's called ARMS length of rental reporting, and really as we focus today, that's really going to be the focus area of this conversation. We developed the length of rental reporting based on feedback from shops that wanted a measurement they could have to show how their cycle time was compared to other shops because they felt they were doing better. But I think, as I'll get into, there's reasons why it's turned out, and again, it's really been accidental. It's been based on shops' feedback to us. All of the reporting I'll show you today is based on shops' feedback, and shops helped us build this reporting. We do have a customer repair status notification tool, so that's strictly text and email, where they can text or email a customer. That's a free service. There are other providers out there. Some of their management systems in the shops will have that too. We have reservation capability. One of the things we wanted to do is stop shops from having to call our office. So every shop in the U.S. now has the ability to send an electronic reservation for a customer to Enterprise. We get our assignment like they get their assignment ahead of time, and then it helps us in the scheduling process. We do have an ARMS auto stop button, which I'll talk a little bit about real quick, and that is that there's a stop button within ARMS auto, and what that does, it doesn't look like a stop button, but what it says is the vehicle has returned to the shop. And when the shop presses that icon that says that and puts in the last 6 of our VIN, it actually stops the charges. And the reason that's important is we want to be able to have shops be able to use this length of rental reporting as a really good benchmark. And if we don't know the car's dropped there and it goes an extra day or two and it shows up on their cycle time reports, that's not a good thing. And then the last thing, and this is very new, we haven't even branded it out there yet, but we're going to talk real quick about the ARMS Business Solutions. And really what's happened with a couple acquisitions we've made of both Syncast, which is a company some of you may know, and also if you're not aware, we purchased Performance Gateway back in February of last year. And Performance Gateway is used by a lot of your shops for network management from the insurance companies and things like that, but there's a lot of really great things that are going to come out of that. So with that, as I go through this, a lot of what I do here is the same thing I would do in person with shops. So I'm going to go through some of these key ideas here that I would, in person, if I was in a 20 group or if I was in a meeting, things that I would talk to shops about. And I do this so that you have this information and that you understand kind of where we're coming from on this. So when I ask shops and I say, how do you define cycle time? Give me an idea of when cycle time starts for you. I get a multitude of answers. Some of them say when the customer drops off the vehicle. Some of them say a first notice of loss when that assignment is sent. Some of them say it's when the estimate's uploaded or written. Maybe when parts are ordered, when the vehicle enters production. That's when I say my cycle time starts. I'll often read magazine articles where shops tout that they're 4 or 5 days, and I'll look at our length of rental and see they're 12 days and know that there's just different measurements out there that are being used today. And the same can be said for when that vehicle is complete. Is it when the customer actually picks up their vehicle? Is it when the claim's paid? Maybe it's a non-VRP shop and we're waiting for payment. Is it when the vehicle's detailed, or is it when the vehicle's delivered to the customer? So what we see is there's a variety of measurements that can be used in the industry to measure cycle time. And with that, maybe within a network, like an MSO or a franchise network, everyone using the same numbers can have very consistent cycle times because they're using the same day in and day out, we'll call it, or keys to keys. But the reality is not every shop defines start and end the same. So with that, shops asked us to develop what we call length of rental. And length of rental is pretty basic, except I will tell you this. Length of rental is only based on the build days, meaning the days we build an insurance company. And that's very important because if a customer keeps the car an extra day or two, or the shop maybe messed up and is paying a couple extra days or two, we only count the build days that are going to the insurance company. Because really at the end of the day, for the majority of the insurers, that's what they care about. They care about how much am I paying, because they're paying millions of dollars. And it's good for us, but we also want to be good partners to both the insurers and the shops. We want to help people manage the business better. So the reason it became the standard within the industry is, first, management systems require a manual input. And again, if we go back to when the start and end date is, do I have to remember what date to input, things like that, we can see a variety of different inputs. Insurance company systems like Allstate's Earl system requires a manual input from the shop. And I know from speaking to Allstate, not all shops input the data correctly. There's a variety of measurements for keys to keys. And I think the biggest thing, and this really came from, this isn't something we wrote down, Enterprise. This is something that came from folks that we worked with, both small MSOs, large MSOs, some single shop folks. I won't name names because I don't think that's right, but a lot of folks helped us develop this, and they really liked that we have a large sample size. We won't talk market share here, but we have a very large share of the market, and we're a neutral third party. We're just reporting on our ticket data on those billed tickets. And then again, the last thing that happened, so we developed this for them because they wanted to see how they ranked. And then what they did is they actually went to insurance companies and said, we want to be graded on Enterprise's length of rental because we know we're doing a better job than the guy or gal down the street at this shop, and we want to be able to show you how good we are. And so a lot of insurance companies, I could name a bunch, USAA, Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, Geico. There's a lot of insurance companies out there that have actually embraced the Enterprise length of rental as the measurement for their shops. And it really came from, again, repairers recommending it, not us so much pushing it in the market or anything like that. So one of the things that I ask shops is I say, why should you guys have goals? And I'll tell you, one of the things that's really come out of this is we've broken it down to, I think shop owners get it, but a shop owner or manager getting it is not as important as everyone within that organization getting it. If I was to ask a tech what your cycle time goal is, or a painter, it's I want to get cars in and out as quick as I can. I think you probably all know, because you're probably looking at your P&Ls every month and every week and every day, you know where you're tracking. You know where you're heading to. And most of these folks don't know because they don't have a goal of what they should be doing, and they don't know where they end up at the end of the month. All they know is an insurance company comes in once a quarter, beats me up, tells me I'm not doing good, and I have nothing to reference it by. So when we ask shops this, we get these answers, and they're great answers. More cars in and out of the shop. That's a great thing. More new DRPs, and what I mean by that is if I'm performing exceptionally well, I can use the reporting I'll show you in a couple minutes to go after new DRPs or to go to my existing DRPs and say, give me some more business. Now, for those people who choose not to be DRP, you know what, I'm not going to judge anyone. There's some great niches out there for folks who don't do DRP. But I would definitely want to know, how do I compare to the market? And we'll be able to show you that today too, where they can look and say, how am I comparing to the market? Am I beating the market? Am I lagging behind? Maybe my efficiency in my shop's not as good. Maybe my estimators aren't writing as good sheets as they should be. They can look at this data and compare their market. And when I say market, it really is an industry. More profit, obviously more cars in and out, hopefully more profit for the shop. In this day and age right now, where we see technician shortages and we see employees jumping ship right and left and going from one to the other, I tend to think, and again, it's based on feedback from shops too, if we can, obviously culture and that stuff is very important with shops or with techs in any business, but maybe paying a little bit more, because now I'm moving cars in and out quicker, now my shop's more profitable, now I can share more of that with my employees. I think it'll help in the retention point of view. And then obviously happier customers. And I didn't put any J.D. Power slides on here, but I can tell you there comes a point in the process, and it doesn't matter on the size of the hit, whether it's just a bumper or a large hit of 50, 60 labor hours, customers reach a point by the number of days without their personal vehicle where their satisfaction erodes. And that concerns carriers because they tend to lose those people as customers. The retention drops. And then lastly is something that I call your compelling story, and that came from Mike Jones, if any of you have heard Mike Jones speak, and I think probably some of you have. What is my compelling story as a shop? If my compelling story is only that I fix cars good and my CSI is okay and all this, you got to have a compelling story. And what we've decided, and when I say we, I'm talking about 20 groups I've worked with, is these folks want to be minimum 2 days below their market average, because that's a compelling story. Now I have a good argument. If I'm fixing cars at market average or a little bit below, that's not a good selling point. That's not a good compelling story for your insurance carriers. That's not a good compelling story to say, I want to get more cars in the shop, but I'm not performing very well, at least from a cycle time perspective. And I should say this because, again, I work for Enterprise, and you're watching me talk about cycle time. I get it. The most important thing is fixing that car right the first time. The quality. I've 2 kids who seem to wreck cars quite a bit, and I will tell you, I get it. The most important thing is fixing that car correct, but I also think you can fix that car quicker if your processes and your awareness to what your cycle time is improves. And when I say that, again, I mean not just the owner's awareness, not just the shop manager's office or running that shop, but the person at the front desk to the tech, to the estimator, the painter, the person sweeping the floor. So I wanted to show you just a couple quick things in ARMS Auto. I will tell you, you can demo this at www.armsauto.com, and you can check yourself, and there's a little thing up in the upper right here. Let me close this box so I can say, oh, it's not there. But you can see it's demo. It'll pre-fill the words demo, and you can test this. So this is the initial screen that a shop sees when they log in. So they'll click sign in after that, and hopefully it'll go. There we go. And then they'll get to their vehicle list page. You'll notice I blocked out names here of companies, so hopefully I did that. And just show you a couple things. Here's that create reservation button I talked about earlier, where they can make a reservation. What they see here is they see any vehicles that need updates. Now, let's talk about that really quick. When I say a vehicle needs an update, most shops will tell you they think that Enterprise wants their car back. And I will tell you, we don't make money unless that car is on the road. So we don't necessarily want that car back. But we also want to be good stewards in this process. What insurance companies require of us is that we go ahead and get updates. It's part of our value proposition. We have about 864 people that are stationed in-house at insurance companies monitoring the length of rental. They're following up on the process. They're following up to see if that vehicle's on track. Because what insurers have found is if they don't do that, vehicles take longer to fix. Now, if we look at this company, just for instance, this shop, you'll see here they've got one for Infinity, Travelers, Direct General, USAA, Esurance. This shop, if they didn't update an ARMS Auto, then they could potentially receive 5 to 10 phone calls from different in-house locations from Enterprise, which is a total pain in the butt. That's why we built this system way back in 1999. We built it because shops complained that we called too much. So this is showing needs update. If they clicked here, they could see all rental vehicles, and you can see this shop had 138 vehicles on this day out with us on rent. And just for information, this all vehicles tab is just for if they're doing text and email notifications. They can actually text and email all of their customers, not just those associated with an Enterprise vehicle. I guess I'll put a click there. So if I clicked on one of the customers, let me just go back real quick. If I can, there you go. So if I clicked on Becky Ortiz here, then this vehicle detail page pops up. And what it shows us is the insurance company, the adjuster's name, type of car, labor hours, which can either come to us from the Syncast data manager. It could come to us from the insurance company if they send them directly, like Allstate, for example, or it could come from an information provider where a carrier allows that. And then if, like this shop, I know, and I'll get to this in a minute. Actually, I probably should show you this real quick. If a shop has what's called a data manager or data pump, they can send us the hours directly. And that's how we get the RO number or the repair ID number from them and the labor hours. So we'll get into that in a second. The other thing I wanted to show you is, remember I talked about the stop button where it says here, rental car return to shop. If I click that, a new VIN box pops up right here, and they can actually put in the last 6 of the VIN, hit submit, and it'll stop the charges. So I'll stop there. It's a lot of information, I know, and there are websites and stuff, and we have folks in the field, again, that can show you this. So let's take a step back. So I'm a shop. I clicked on Becky Ortiz. Now I need to select a repair status. So I'm just going to click here on the repair status. And then this, what we call, don't ask me how, the mega drop-down pops up. Now this mega dropdown basically is repair status, delay reasons, or reasons. All of these statuses have SICA codes which tie into about 26 different management systems. So whether it's ProfitNet, Mitchell, Rome, I can't even think of them all. It will tie into that to where if a shop wanted to integrate with their management system, which is free, by the way, and all the stuff I'm showing you, by the way, is free. It's free to your shop. There's absolutely zero cost to this, but it can tie in so they don't have to go into Arms Auto and update the data as much. I always recommend shops go in there just to make sure that we have the right vehicles, because sometimes a customer will say they're bringing that car to the shop, and then they don't. So the other thing I wanted to show you here is this vehicle's total loss. It's very important, again, going back to length of rental and giving them reporting, that they tell us if the vehicle's a total loss, because it could sit in their, we'll call it their books in their Arms Auto for 30 days or whatever, and then that'll hit their cycle time, and we don't want that to happen. And as I'm going through this, if you guys have questions, write them down or send them to Melissa and we'll do it. So I just wanted to show you guys real quick, kind of basically, I just use Repair Center, which is Mitchell's product, but if a shop downloads the Syncast Data Manager, it sends the estimates, all estimates to Syncast. They then look for a match of a rental from us, and once that happens, and it's based on name, address, phone number, insurance company, claim number, that type of thing, then we can populate with labor hours. And that's important because we can then show the shop average labor hours per day. We can show them their estimate labor hours, and we can show them how they compare to their market. We have a privacy statement out there like every company does that we won't sell, distribute all this stuff with the data. More than happy to send that if someone needs it, or you can access it right on the Arms Auto website. And this was just to show you, I think this is Repair Center, how a shop can actually just click on a certain status and it would be sent to Enterprise as long as they have that integration set up. And again, that's from most management systems out there. And then once we do that, you can see here from the same customer, from the Syncast Data Manager, we received the labor hours and we populated it for them. And then that was the rental vehicle return shop. So that's kind of through the Arms Auto stuff. Now, what I consider to be, in my opinion, and it wasn't because I came up with it, although it's me and a few people, the reporting that's really taken off. And I'll tell you, we have every month 6,000 shops get our reporting from Arms Auto, and then we send out a monthly report that another 6,000 shops get. So this is stuff that's out there, but we figure in our market, we know that roughly 15,000 shops send us 90% of our business. So we've targeted 15,000 as our goal, and we've got about 5,000 to 6,000 right now that use this on a weekly basis. May actually be a little higher than that. So when this shop goes into Arms Auto, this is their screen. I blanked out the names. This is to show you, though, that if it's an MSO, they can have one view. So this is the 2 shops I put on here. They simply click on the report menu, and then what happens is it goes to this screen. And let me just, I didn't want to do that. Let me go back. That's okay. It goes to this screen. And what this screen does, it's going to default to the current month or the last month. So in this case, it goes to October 2015 and month October 2015. The great thing here is if you press this little arrow, you can actually go all the way back to October 2008. Now, what that means is we can give you length of rental from October 2008, but we can probably not give you, if you haven't had the Syncast Data Manager, accurate estimate labor hours and hours per day. But again, the length of rental is really what the insurers are focusing on. But as a shop, I'd like to know how I compare on labor hours per day and things like that. They can also sort it by repair facility or insurance company, drive, non-drive, claim type. If you guys are working with a lot of Geico shops, ARX, they're very interested in the drivable vehicles. So taking a look at this, I will tell you there's 3 different reports right here. This is that historical closed ticket summary. There's also a current month closed ticket, which looks exactly like this, but what it will do is, and today's a bad day, let's say today was the 25th of November, it'll give you data up till the 24th of November. so shops can see where they're tracking by insurance carrier in case they have a specific goal by carrier or they have a penalty they have to pay for not hitting their goal. You can also download this report. So just to go through this really quick, so imagine two shop names here, Shop A or B. Shop A had 65 rentals with us that month. Average labor hours on their estimates were 19.8. Their average labor hours per day were 2.5. And I know when people look at that, they go 2.5. Industry average, and I could put 10,000 shops into my database and look at this, is between 2.5 and 2.7. If a shop's hitting 4, they are knocking it out of the park. They're probably in the top 5% in the country. Just keep that in mind as you guys go through this. Don't be surprised to see shops doing 1.8 and things like that. And then the last thing I want to show you is this average insurance build days, maybe not the last thing. So this is the length of rental, but we've named it build days just so we didn't confuse people. So this market, as an example, and I'm in St. Louis, so this market in St. Louis, where I ran this, is at 10.2 days. This shop here is at 7.8. This one's at 8.9. So combined, they're 1.8 days less than the market. I would say that this shop at 7.8 days, unless, of course, you know, we have to preface some of this, if they're a Geico ARX shop, they're definitely more likely to have smaller hits because they're doing drivable vehicles, okay? So keep that in mind as you do it. If you see a Geico shop and they're doing 7.8, that's a normal number. If they're doing all sorts of repairs and they're at 7.8, they're kicking butt. What I wanted to do here is just show kind of what I do for 20 groups when I do it. And I actually took this from a 20 group. I ran a report from January through September just to show you what we see here. So again, imagine these are repair facility names. I'll rank them as a group. So if you guys have a lot of shops that share data or are willing to share data, we can do stuff like this for you to where you can rank them by group. And then I show them the market average just so they can see. So as an example, this first shop had 157 rentals with us. Their average labor hours were 24.5. Their average labor hours per day were 3.1, which is very good, and their average length of rental was 7.4. Now, what I look at when I look at this is I look at something else, and this is probably here's probably a good example. And it's probably not accurate data because my guess is this shop doesn't have a data manager. But I recently worked with a shop in New York, an MSO in upstate New York, and their average estimate labor hours were 23, and upstate New York was 30. So my initial thought was that this shop is doing a lot of Geico ARX. They're doing all drivable vehicles and all that. And what I found is they weren't. So they were leaving 7 hours on the table potentially, right? So the market's at 30, I'm at 23. I'm doing generically the same type of cars that the market's doing. I've got the same carriers that the market has, yet my estimates are 23 over, you know, 9-10 month period, maybe a year period. That tells me maybe my estimators are leaving some money on the table. And I think that's where you can use that to say, hey, here's a tool that can help you to know what's my competition doing. You know, should I be using an estimate scrubber as an example to get more bang for the buck, some more money for my shop? And this gentleman had, I think, between 6 and 8 locations and was doing quite a bit of volume. And to leave 7 hours on the table, even if he cut it to 3 or 4, he was going to make a ton more money. We can break it down for them by carrier, and that's what I did here. And I won't go through it too much. I just wanted to show you, you know, they can break it down by carrier even in ARMS Auto. That's where I ran this report from, and then I just put it in an Excel spreadsheet, downloaded it. And this is really good if you get groups together because you can actually click on State Farm within ARMS Auto and show all the shops and then have discussions about, you know, if one shop's doing 8.7 days with State Farm and one's doing 12, you know, what are you doing process-wise? If we're both DRPs, what are we doing process-wise that's different? How can I help you get better? And I think if you guys really embrace this stuff and start using it, what you'll find is you'll become the expert and you'll be able to talk to them based on your wisdom and experience of having looked at this through several of your shop partners to say who's performing good and who's not. And then put them in touch with each other as long as they're not competitors to hopefully help them excel. And then here's where I did it. State Farm, actually, this is one I did, and this was just State Farm, same type of thing. And you can see this shop was doing 6.3, and then you've got, and not a lot of rentals here, but this one's a pretty big one, and they're at 9.3. So they're 3 days difference. And, you know, that's significant. So I'd want to know from this shop, from a process standpoint, what's the difference? You know, 2.3 labor hours compared to 3.4. Obviously, your production's a lot better than mine. You know, what is it? And there could be a logical answer, but Mike Anderson says data tells you two things. Either celebrate or go look. And if I'm this shop, I'm going to this shop, and I'm looking and trying to figure out what am I doing wrong. Okay, so that's most of it for reporting, but I did want to add a couple other things, and I know I'm watching the time very closely, Melissa. I did a report, actually. Great. I did a report for the Property Insurance Casualty Associate, Property Insurance Associate, I don't know, PAIC, Property, whatever. And it's basically made up of all the top insurers in the country. And this was a slide I showed them, and I just wanted to create some stuff that I thought would be interesting. And I think it's interesting to all of us today. And what I'm doing is I'm comparing DRP and non-DRP length of rental. And what we find is that both are trending up. Length of rental as a whole, you guys see it, severity, everything's trending up right now. It's been for a while. I think it's going to continue to go that way because cars are coming out a lot more complex than they used to be. I think now you need a PhD to fix a car. But going back to 2010, the variance between DRP and non-DRP was 1.78 days, and now it's up to 2.65 days. And these were year over year, and I want to say I did this one January through September. But you can see the variance is growing, and I think what you're going to see is more and more insurers. I mean, if we looked at USAA, for example, over 70% of their claims are actually going through their DRP network. And I think this is a big reason why they're seeing a lot more bang for the buck. Now, from a shop perspective, my argument could be this. Shops have done insurers have done a really good job with the DRPs by not holding their hands as much. Whereas now the non-DRPs are sending out independent appraisers, they're doing all this stuff, and that's what's driving up non-DRP. But I think from a insurer standpoint, they're going to look at this and say, you know what, the DRP model might be the best model. And I just wanted to share with you guys that, and I know this is going to go up to where you guys can share it with shops on a website too. Again, just to show the labor hour variance, this was, as I talked about the shop in New York, you've got this guy doing 35.8 hours compared to 25.6 for the market. This could be high-end. This could be someone doing all Mercedes and BMWs and stuff like that. The ones I'd wonder about is even these small ones. And this was the 20 group I work with. And, you know, they're a couple hours. And I would just question, you know, how am I doing compared to everyone else? And these guys were performing pretty good compared to their markets. Just some other data, if you guys ever have shops you're working with that are very specific, you know, whether it's a dealer group or something like that, that's working with specific manufacturers. We do have manufacturer data. We collect that right off the estimate, so we can show that, you know, Toyotas, as an example, are 10.31 days based on the time period I ran it, average labor hours, things like that. So if you have someone that's very heavy in that, that's helpful. We also have it. It's too bad I didn't put it there. Darn it. We have one. I have a slide like this, and I left it off, that shows the high-end vehicles, the Audis and things like that. And what we find with those is, if you talk to a shop that does primarily Audis and BMWs and Mercedes, they feel like the cycle time is significantly higher for those vehicles. And I will tell you, it is higher, but if I had to say significant, I would say 5 to 10 days, and it's really only about 2 to 3. So if I'm that type of repair shop that's doing high-end, I would love this data to be able to compare. Eventually, we will get this into Arms Auto, so shops will be able to compare themselves. But in the meantime, if you had a need for a specific manufacturer or something, you can definitely reach out to me, and we'd be more than glad to help you. And then the last thing, maybe it's not last, I'm not even looking. So it is almost last thing. So one of the things we're hearing about a lot in the industry is scheduling. And I think you guys probably see it today. There's still a lot of shops that are afraid to hand the keys off and schedule that customer. But what we're finding is that shops that we've worked with, and when I say we, I'm talking myself, Mike Anderson. I was recently at a dealership 20 group. I was there a year ago and then about 2 months ago, and I showed them a report like this, and what we found was with this group is 65% of their vehicles came in on a Monday. And the goal should be to spread those out, right? Because if I'm bringing in 65% on a Monday, that means my painter's not doing anything till a Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday everyone's working a lot of overtime trying to get those vehicles out. So we can actually look at a shop and see, you know, what day of the week by percentage are they taking in vehicles, and then with that break it down by their length of rental by that day of the week. And I think every day of the week's trending up, and I showed it again to that property casualty group, just to stress that Monday may not be the best day, because what we find is Mondays are growing the most. The length of rental on Mondays are increasing more than any other day of the week, not counting Sunday, which frankly I shouldn't even have on there, or Saturday, because that's not realistic. Not very many cars come in on a Sunday or Saturday. So that's it for that. I do want to make a plea, if you will. I'm on the executive board of the Collision Industry Foundation. If you don't know what the Collision Industry Foundation is, it's basically a group. It's an organization. It was originally founded by the National Auto Body Council, and it's kind of a spin-off from that. And you know, the National Auto Body Council really focuses on taking care of folks outside of the collision industry, if you will. This organization works on helping people within the industry. So when I say that, I don't mean your shop owners. What I mean is your techs, your painters, and folks like that. And what we do, there's a website you can go to, collisionindustryfoundation.org. What we do, and this is a great example of a gentleman who, I believe he just came back from his 4th tour of duty, and this occurred last year at CIC in Palm Springs. All his tools were stolen. So the guy goes, serves for our country, for people like me who've never served, who have a wife and 4 kids, and left his family and his kids, and went and served 4 tours of duty, comes back, and all of his tools had been stolen. And so through the donations that we received and through some help with Snap-on, we were able to provide him about $10,000 worth of new tools to get him back to work. Now, that's a pretty extreme example. And I would just ask you guys if you would, hopefully you got some value from this webinar, but I sure would ask you to take a look at the website. We are going to be in Palm Springs this year at CIC if you're there. We have a great fundraiser there at Lulu's. I think it costs $65 to get in, which is cheap. Includes all your food, all your drink. I mean, find a place that does that. But if you would, I'd love for you guys to take a look at that website and go ahead and maybe either donate or just make sure that the shops that you work with are aware that there's help should a catastrophe or some event happen in the lives of those folks that we can help with. So with that, I want to thank you, and then any questions, let me open this up. Hopefully there weren't any on the way. Be more than happy to answer any questions everyone has.
We don't have any questions yet, but if anybody does have any, you can type them in. And again, I'll follow up and send everybody's with Frank contact information. And Frank also can, there's a lot of people in your areas, and if you need or you want help, I guess, on a one-on-one basis, he might be able to get some representation to help you do that. So we send some people to work with you guys if there's somebody in your area. I don't see any questions. Frank, it was really informative. It was excellent information. Another tool that our members and our salespeople can go and they can work with their shops and offer, you know, solutions to help them run more efficiently. And we really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So, guys, I'll just, and girls, I'll finish up and send everybody, I'll follow up, and we'll put this, we did record it, so it will be on our YouTube channel, and we'll send you all the link as well. All right? Thanks, everyone.